or still?
No, I like the shelves. I was just admiring them.
Oh, okay. I mean, thank you. They are. He did a great job. I don't know. I'm overthinking it. That's
Yeah,
just all it
yeah.
comes down to.
Don't even worry.
Is this holding right? Let's.
Yeah. Okay, so Dark Bleatings, everyone. This particular author interview is already brought to you by Chaos because we had technical troubles, but now we're here. I have Gavin Dillinger with me, who you may have seen me have a somewhat public feud on Instagram with a few months back over this book, An Exploration of Existential Indifference and a Void of Confidence, or Goodbye, a novel. Is this your most recent work, Gav?
It is for the moment. I don't know. There's something in the works. I don't know how much I can say at this time. So we could be seeing something drop this year. That is a collaboration. You actually might know a bit about it already, but I don't know how much I can publicly say.
Oh yeah, I do know. I just realized we were talking about. I can't tell you guys yet. I say we. I'm not actually involved in it, but I know about it. Okay, so this is the most recent published works that is available for everyone to buy, and I have to tell you this is an absolute hoot. This is right up my street for my reading tastes, and I was recommending it to absolutely everybody. So let's start with the title. I was just talking to Eric LaRocca about long book titles, but I think that the length of the words in this particular title must be some sort of record for length.
It was initially I had titled the project Good Boy, and then a short film came out starring Judy Greer that was called Good Boy, and it was also about a demonic dog. So I felt like, despite the fact that this film had come out long after I finished the project, it had a much larger marketing campaign than an indie horror author has. So I felt that I needed to, prior to publication, retitle it in some regard, in some capacity. And so I figured if I wasn't going to be able to, or if I had to retitle it, I was just going to retitle it hard and just build out. I've come to love it so much, just that it's just this mouthful. It's just
it's slightly over the top in the same way that everything that happens to the main character is.
Yeah,
I think that's quite apt. So for people who have not yet read this, this is a story about a guy who moves into a house without looking at it first. And if you think that sounds far-fetched, I know two people that did that, although they got scammed and the house didn't exist, but they...
Oh my goodness, what?
Yeah, so... and only to discover that there is a hell portal, so he spends his nights shoving things back in with a broom, kicking things back in there. And then he acquires a dog, a nice little doggo. And then chaos ensues.
Yeah. And it... No, I actually... And part of that... The initial idea was really just... like, didn't even explain. Like, when I initially wrote it out, I didn't even bother explaining why there was a portal to hell in the master bedroom. I was just like, you know what? This is what I want to happen. So guess what? It's here now.
No explanation necessary.
Yeah. And then as I got ready to put it out into the world, I was like, maybe I should justify this. Like, make this make sense. But I've come to realize, I mean, there's so many ways that an individual can really go about their life and participate in transactions that at one time were long, arduous, very human, like just a lot of human interaction. There's ways you can avoid that human interaction now. They're ill-advised, and one of those ways would be to purchase a home through a website without ever seeing it, but they're possible. And and the protagonist, Joe, is very much just overly anxious to the point where he will make his life worse to avoid human interaction. And it's something that I kind of feel like I think people do a lot more
Yeah.
now than they realize. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. So the book that I would compare it to if people asked me what it's like if they're trying to gauge whether they'd like it, I think the closest comparison, although it really isn't the same, but in feel is kind of like John dies at the end, that kind of tone. But it doesn't go as abstract as that. So it's not quite as completely balls out bizarro as John dies at the end, which
Yeah.
I like because John dies at the end was a little bit much for me. But
John Dies, yeah, that one's actually my John Dies at the End is actually like my favorite book. And I mean, I
oh,
think,
really?
yeah, yeah, no. So I was very flattered when in your review you mentioned Parjin because, like, I mean, I've got there we go, like
Yeah,
on the shelves above my desk, like I've just got all his novels, and I mean, I really sometimes you come across an author where they say things in a way that you thought only you thought them.
yeah,
And that's kind of what Parjin has been for me, where I'm not out here trying to emulate him as much as it is like, oh, this happens to be the guy who, like, the way he positions things, phrases things, is is the way that I have always like processed things, and it can be, and it's not the default common way of processing thoughts, and so you sometimes feel isolated. And so when you find someone who speaks the same way you do, be that through their writing, be that through the very words they use, um, it creates a synchronicity um, that becomes special to you. And so
mhm,
while while a lot of my writing nowadays is actually a little more, it's a little more, I guess, toned down. This one was very, this book was very, very out there at times. And a lot of what I'm doing now is a lot more kind of introspective, I would say,
mhm,
um, and a little slower,
mhm.
um, not slow, but slower. Uh,
Yeah,
it's still the way Parjin wrote really resonated with me, especially in my early and mid 20s, which is when the mid 20s was really when I was writing most of this. And then I came and did the cleanup right as I was turning 30.
mhm. It's yeah, it's so the overall tone is already funny because of the setup. So you kind of like know what you're kind of going into when you start. But I have writers where I feel like I think in a similar way. And this book to me, I kept wishing that I thought like you to come up with these sentences and things because the way that you phrase things, I was laughing out loud like every few pages at least. And there's only one other book in my entire life that's made me laugh this much, and it was Adam Millard's Milk, and I've been going on about that for years. And then I
I'm not
picked when
familiar with that one.
you're not familiar. Oh,
No.
it's it's uh it's basically just in a sort of set in a sort of post-apocalyptic scenario where resources are scarce, and a guy called Lou just randomly starts lactating one day and decides to sell the milk. Um, so so um and that was like the idea was just so absurd and silly, but it's never, I don't think, from memory, I don't think he explains it either. So but yeah, just the general tone. And yeah, the way that you phrase things and sort of like this character's voice, um it's like, it's a horror novel, but it's hilarious. And usually I prefer active protagonists where they're doing the things and making the things happen, whereas um this guy, things just keep happening to him. But it's so funny because it's just like a really unfortunate series of chain events keep happening that he's trying to deal with, and his sort of general attitude to everything is, oh.
It's I mean, it's it's that part is really based out of just any time. And I know, like, I've done this a lot. I know lots of people who've done this where things happen and you're just kind of like, I guess I just keep living now. Like, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do.
Yeah,
Like, I guess I'm just gonna work with this and just like trying to act like earth-shattering events aren't earth-shattering. because like the acknowledgement of that is so much more terrifying than being like, I can just fix this for now.
Yeah, well, I think that that's what makes it so relatable, because most people, when something bad happens, their automatic reflex isn't some sort of Tom Cruise maneuver where you're like, right, okay, I've got a plan and I'll take care of this. It's just like, we're not all, John Constantine. If hell pops up, we're just sort of like, well, I say this as if this has happened. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. Maybe there is a hell portal somewhere in my house and I've just put a rug over it. You don't know. But I think most people in a crisis, or what anyone would consider a crisis or a real problem, just kind of do sweep it under the rug and hope it goes away. So the fact that this hell portal was just in his bedroom and it's like, oh, something else is coming out. Look, I get a broom. Just...
Yep. Yeah, that's really, it's just an excessive inconvenience is kind of the entire situation.
Yeah, I totally understand, because he's paid for this house, he's moved in. He's not going to just move back out just because of, a little inconvenience like a hell portal.
There's a lot of money involved in purchasing a home. Like you just no, that's nonsense.
I forgot when I was reading. I'm actually really happy that you changed the title, because I know it's All Good Boy, a novel, but I forgot that this was about the dog for a lot of the time. So obviously the dog is a frequent character, comes up all the time. But I just forgot that. Obviously, don't want to give any spoilers for anybody, but I just forgot that the dog might be important.
Well, Munch Munch, the dog, is really the catalyst of so much of it, because that's the moment where Joe, the protagonist, kind of cares about something, and it's one of the few things that he really takes responsibility for is Munch. But yeah, no, a lot of it is really just about Joe and his inability to function in society.
Yeah, he has a lovely bond with this dog, and it's just, I don't know, I just really love this book, and I think it would make, I'm dying for some film person to get their hands on it, because it would make the best film, or even like a limited series. I think.
I mean, I would love that too. It's one of those things where, like, when I did it, though, there was so much about it that was just felt natural. And I'm sure you've had this in times when you've written too, where there's something you write that you're just like, oh, what that everything else I've done is work. That wasn't work. Why wasn't that work? And it was, and so there is this element to it that, like, if this is all it ever is, I'm happy, because it's out there, and I feel like it is a collection of thoughts that I don't know if I ever would have been able to verbalize. And the fact that I've had people respond to it in the way they have, of just thinking it's a fantastic read, like, that's flattering, and it's also very disorienting, because in part because, and this is really true of anything in kind of the more indie fields, is you feel like that thing you like is weird and is uncommon.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you find that community, and it's like, oh, so is it not weird, or are we just all collectively weird? Is it a bit of both? It's a very disorienting experience, but I love it.
Yeah, I think that so we had interacted a little bit before I read this, because of The Perfectly Fine Neighborhood.
Yes.
And I was following you on Instagram, but we've never met in person. I don't know you very well, and I just felt like I got such a sense of your sense of humor and personality through this book. And then also, all of your book promotional reels are hilarious. I have to tell you, they're my favorite.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been slacking on them a little lately, because for a little while there, I'd been working at a nonprofit, and they were just funding changes, and I lost, and so they had to let someone go, and that person ended up being me. And then I was working like 2 part-time jobs where like there'd be days where I would leave at like 7 a.m., get back at 11 p.m. And I just didn't have the energy to put things together. And I'm now fully employed again at another disability nonprofit, but yeah, I'm like a month in. So I'm now like starting to sit down and as I'm getting a grasp on that job, being like, all right, so how do I do this other stuff in, you know, how do I do it all? Which is, you know,
Oh
when you
yeah.
do, which then creates a whole other problem of sleep.
Oh
But
yeah.
we'll get
Yeah.
to that some other time.
If sleep wasn't, imperative, we could get so much more done.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. I am no, I'm this is such a dumb thing to say, but like I routinely have these moments where I do basic human things such as sleep a reasonable amount, and then
Mhm.
I'm like, wow, this was really good. Why don't I
Yeah.
do this more often? Like I
Yeah.
slept for a full 8 hours last night, and I was like, how does my skin look better? Like, like how is that? Is sleep good for me?
I know. But I view a good night's sleep as a luxury. Um, I'm a chronic insomniac, and I found a new facet of it recently. This has never happened to me before, where no
Okay.
matter how tired I am or how long I've been awake, my body will not sleep for longer than 2 hours at a time now. So
Oh.
I've been like pushing it and staying up till like midnight, thinking, right, I'm really tired. I've been awake for 20 hours. I'm really tired. And then at 2:30 a.m., I'm like, oh. And you'd think that I could get something like more done in those hours, but I'm not productive because I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
sleep.
No, and that's oh my goodness. No, that sucks.
That's
I know
I do
exactly
it.
what you mean because there'll be times where like where I'm from doing too much where I would like, you know, then have free time and I'd be like, okay, well now I can, you know, I have free time. I can write that thing I was wanting to write and I'm just like I have plenty of hours before bed and I just sit there and do nothing. And it's like, well, I could just write while I'm sitting there. Doesn't take much energy to move your fingers, but like when be it work, insomnia, when your brain is just dead, it doesn't matter if you're awake or not. Nothing's getting done.
Oh yeah, yeah. Your brain, you're not very functional if you haven't slept. Maybe this is where all of your funny ideas come from, though, because your brain starts going peculiar after a while. I tried to plug my, I needed to charge my PlayStation controller last night, and I tried to plug my phone into it. So that was when
My
I thought, wow, I need some sleep. I really need some
my
sleep.
gosh, I do like manual pour overs for my coffee. And because I'm just that pretentious and unbearable. But there are days where I wonder why I put myself through that process because I'll like measure out the beans that I'm going to grind for the pour over and then just pour water into my coffee grinder because it's like 5 a.m. And for some reason, I think that's going to be the time of day when I'm most focused in on this process. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
Grinder kept working, so it's fine, but it's just it was a thing.
yeah. I quite often boil the kettle, put water in the cup with nothing else, and then I walk off with it. I'm like, wait, this isn't what I wanted.
Oh
Not what I
no.
need. Yes. So the question I was gonna ask you was
Mhm.
if you have any sort of particular writing habits or a routine, or if you just grab the time when you have the time and the energy.
Yeah, my habits are constantly changing. I always try to write in the morning before work, but it doesn't always work. And sometimes I kind of find that I need this like I almost need like half an hour to an hour where I just burn time, where my
Yeah.
I just let my mind wander and it's like, oh, like this morning I woke up to write and before I could do that, I had to read about how UC Saros, who is the goaltender for the Nashville Predators, and he's 5'11", which is short for an NHL goalie, how he uses geometry to basically get his glove out in front to reduce the angle at which someone could shoot. And that's why he's one of the highest performing goaltenders in the league, despite the fact that he's not even 6 foot. I needed to read about that before I could write, and I wish I could explain why, but like my brain just wants to like, it's just like, oh, what's this? What's this? It's just, I have to let it run free like a child and wear itself out, and then I can focus in and start doing things.
Yeah.
Which is aggravating because it means that the actual productivity time of the time I've set aside to write is not very productive, but it's just how it works for me.
I think a thing that makes us all feel bad is when you get the really, really successful writers like Stephen King's like, I write every single day, 7 days a week, and I write for 4 or 5 hours in the morning. And I think that we all forget that he's a full-time author.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you don't have any of the, if you don't need to make your money any other way, you don't have to also fit in 8 to 12 hours a day work.
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot easier for someone in his position.
Well, that was something, yeah, and that was something Kazanowski and I were talking about. We were talking about it with each other at AuthorCon in St. Louis. Just, it's not, there are those like, you know, people will say, you know, you have to write every day, you have to do this, you have to do that, and that they'll like lay out these things that in reality are only attainable if that is the only thing you do. One of the reasons Stephen King is able to do that now is his kids are grown and out of the house. The reason he was able to do it when they were kids is because he was on cocaine. Like, it is just not practical for a normal human being to do that every day and still participate in the responsibilities of life. I mean, it's possible, but it takes a level of discipline that I don't think you should beat yourself up over if you don't have it.
Yeah,
because
I do think he's incredible because he did make this career for himself from nothing. But I just mean like now when I have noticed as well though that every full-time author you ask has a completely different routine. So there isn't a set way to get a book written. I usually talk to authors and then just feel energized afterwards. And then I go on a little writing spree. And then I've hit the 40,000 word mark on what I'm writing. And that's always the doom part for me.
We've talked about this, like obviously not here, but like we've messaged about this where you will get well into a project and then just want to toss it, like just want to start over.
It just starts looking like I don't know what I've done. I don't know what I'm doing. The whole thing seems like a mess and it's chaos. And then I'm trying to untangle. I'm like, wait, hang on. What am I doing?
That's what the editing process is for. Like, just finish the rest of the words and we'll sort it out later.
That's what everyone keeps telling me is just for God's sake, just get to the end. It won't be as bad as you think it is. And if it is, you know, you can fix it. This length of project, how long did this take you to write, roughly?
So that's a little tricky because I wrote the first half over the course of like 6 months, but it wasn't the only project I was working on at the time. Mm-hmm. And then I took a long break, and then I wrote the second half over the course of another like 4 months. So it's really hard for me to say because I tend to work on multiple projects at a time because there are some days where I'm feeling like writing something really stupid and goofy, and there's other days where I'm just like, no, I'm feeling more in my in like an emotional serious bag or in a kind of allegorical gosh, it sounds so pretentious saying it, but allegorical social commentary like mood, like being mad about healthcare systems or something. Like there are, so that cumulatively. I would say about 10 months, and it's not a very long project, but then there was months of editing and the prologue, which is what made the entire book work, was the very last thing written. The ending of the book makes no sense. Or the ending of the book would make no sense if I hadn't gone back and written a prologue that tied it together. The only reason if it honestly, I don't even know if it would feel like a coherent story without the buttons, because it then just, sorry, my dog just walked into the table. I don't know what she's looking for. Birdie, hey girl, what are you doing? No.
Surprised my cat hasn't appeared. Loki normally appears. So
yeah, sorry. I was trying to avoid this, but they appear.
No, that's okay.
They both appear to have finished what I gave them. Oh, just a second.
No, that's fine. My cat normally appears to. Oh, oh. Hello,
Sometimes
dog.
she just needs to be held like a
Yeah,
child.
I understand. Especially if your focus is elsewhere. Like, wait, no, me.
She will, if she is scared at the dog park, she will run up to me and put her paws up to be held. Like she's just a little baby.
Oh, she's so cute.
Birdie, hey, you want it? Whoop, whoop, whoop. There we go. Let's see if we can get her front facing. There she is.
Hey, doggo.
That's
This is our joint interview. And
yeah,
tell
that's.
me, did you inspire the book?
There was a dog that did inspire Munch. It was a dog who passed away before I found her. His name was Lucky, and he was just. My family had gotten him from our cousins who had moved and just where they were in life couldn't really keep up with them anymore. And he was just this. They had raised German Shepherd puppies. And so they would just set out a large thing of food for the German Shepherd puppies. And Lucky, who was some sort of Australian Shepherd mix, would then just like go over to that large bowl of food that was meant for the puppies to graze on, and he would eat it all, and he would lay there, and he was like 20, 30 pounds overweight when we got him. And by the time, he ended up living to be like 17 or 16 or 17, it got to a point we lost count. So he lost the weight eventually, but he was very fat. Like that's just all there is to it. He was a fat dog, and he was also like the nicest dog ever. And so he had, before I started writing this book, he had passed away about a year before that. Oh, there's the cat appearance.
Oh, that's Thor. That he doesn't normally come in. Hi, bud.
But yeah, so before I started writing it, he had passed away, and so there was kind of an element of like, well, I'm still kind of working through this in a way, I think, because he was like just such a kind, loving dog, and it was just kind of like, oh, he's gone. Yeah.
I did think Munch had a lot of personality, and that was something else I really liked about the book, because a lot of times when I feel like if people include pets in books, I feel like I can tell if they actually have a pet, because people who don't have pets don't understand that they're basically people with their own very weird, usually personalities, and that's the wonderful part of having them in your home.
It is. I don't think I could live alone if it wasn't for the fact that I have two dogs. Just because, like, it makes you feel like you're not living alone in a way.
Well, you're not, because you have their family. My cats are family as far as I'm concerned. Some people are like, oh, they're just cats, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, I mean,
I moved them in. They live with me.
She's done. No, it's and I mean, anyone who's lost a pet will tell you, like, if you go from the having a pet to not having a pet, it's like just all of a sudden there's silence, like you're waiting for like the patter of paws, that like the little scratches on the vinyl or whatever to come around the corner. And it's not there, and it really is like a heavy loss. Even if they aren't humans, like it's still like it has a weight on people. There's so there's a band called Foxing that just released a new album last year. There's one song I can't listen to because the song is just the lead singer begging his girlfriend not to sweep the floor, because then that would take away the last bits of hair of the dog who passed away. And I'm just I can't do this.
No, I lost. I had 3 cats. I've got 2 now. I lost one a few months back, and I still have a cushion that I haven't like de-haired. I just can't do it because I cleaned the rest of the house and stuff. But I was like, oh, I think I'll just leave the cushion be for a little bit longer. Yeah, I don't know. It's the same emotional
Sorry,
weight.
did I make you tear up?
A little bit, but
I'm sorry, I teared up a little.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's the same emotional weight for me as if it's a person. And I know there are people who think that's insane, but you know, I had that cat for 15 years. I got her when she was a kitten, and she, yeah, it's just my little bestie. So it's a bit of an adjustment, isn't it?
I mean, I get it. And I mean, I was talking with one of my best friends about this recently, where she had a dog who lived, gosh, mid late teens. He was in he passed away in his mid late teens, and you know, she has other dogs, but like she was talking about the connection to that one particular dog, and it's like that dog she had when she met her now husband, when she married that husband. Like she had that dog through before she met her husband. She had that dog through bad breakups. She had that dog through like big life transitions where she changed jobs, where like a house flooded and like all this like massive stuff. And you know, it's just when you have a pet that long, it's not just the loss of the animal. It's kind of this beacon, maybe like this marker in your life.
Oh yeah,
of this section of your life that just kind of is gone. And it's like, in all these big milestones that they were with you through, and mind you, they probably did not understand that it was a big milestone at the moment, but that they were there for. It's just like up, and that's just it.
And then on the flip side, you get these psycho people who don't care at all. I remember being in school and I lost my first ever pet. I always had cats, and our first family cat that I was really attached to passed away, and I was so upset. I cried at school, and I think I was about 12. And my friend was like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And I was like, "Oh, my cat died," and she was like, "What are you crying for?" I was like, "Because my cat died." And she was like, "Oh, it's just a cat." So I was like, "Well, how would you feel if your pet rabbit died?" And she's like, "It did die last year." Didn't even mention, she didn't care. And I was like,
what? Where is this person now?
I don't know. She was
because I feel like this is like the precursor to like some sort of psychotic behavior, isn't it? Where the person's then like, "Oh, well, I don't care if things live or die."
I just thought that was nuts to me. I was like, oh, okay, so there are different types of people in the world. That was a lesson to me. I was like, okay. I was like, this seems a little bit crazy to me that you can but yeah, she was so just like, not, she's very nice, sweet person, but I know that was another side.
Just not to animals.
Yeah, I'm sure she was nice to her rabbit while it lived, but yeah, she wasn't bothered at all. And I was
Did you ever ask how the rabbit died?
No.
I'm just
in case I didn't want to know. Well, yes, I think you did create this lovely relationship with Mudge in the book, and it so that was like the really good thing. Sorry, that was a good segue back into the
book. No, so, I took us off on a tangent. It's cool.
Oh no, I do that. That's usually what I do. Oh no, I forgot my segue.
You were complimenting me and the relationship with Munch.
Oh, that's right. Yes, so I think people who tend to not pick up books that are like they're known for being funny, if they're looking for horror and they're like, I don't really want comedy horror, I think it's because people assume sometimes that there aren't emotional stakes and weight because it's funny. But obviously, you know, you've got this nice bond with your protagonist and the dog and everything, and there are outer bigger, like technically bigger stakes, but that's not really like what I mainly cared about. I cared about the guy and his dog. So I thought that was a really good like anchor into what the threat like could be or could be against.
Yeah. And I mean, animals are a little bit of a cheat code, to be entirely honest. That's why, like, I mean, because you kind of, and people will often, people who aren't your friend whose rabbit died mysteriously, you know, will assign a sort of like emotional value and personality if you don't already assign one in your creation of the animal character, and view that animal as innocent. And so you kind of create this innocence that people will care about, because people don't like seeing innocence violated or harmed. And so animals are a little bit of a cheat code. I do feel like that wasn't like my thought process as I was doing it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if it picked up that I was getting a phone call at that time.
Oh no.
But yeah, I don't know if yeah, so sorry.
That's okay.
I got thrown off. But yes, the animals are a little bit of a cheat code. The other thing when it comes to like the thing you mentioned about horror and comedy and lack of stakes, I do think sometimes I think part of that is because there are a lot of comedies that are just horror themed and that get grouped into horror comedy as a genre. In particular, I'm thinking of like, for example, What We Do in the Shadows. It's a comedy. It's about vampires, but it's a comedy at its core.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where people start thinking of that as horror comedy, when horror comedy is a little more of a balancing act. And so because I was talking about this on the Creating Monstrosities podcast, where it's really like horror and comedy are really just the same story. You're just asking people to do something different with the information you give them. For example, the example I like to go to is if I tell you I have a story about a person who takes a potion that creates a second personality in them. I could either be talking about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or about the Nutty Professor. Now, part of that is because the Nutty Professor was inspired by Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but it's the same concept, and it's just that a comedy asks you to acknowledge the absurdity of the plot you've been handed, while horror asks you to accept it. So you're just so the genres kind of mesh in that way, and I don't think in any genre you have to give up the idea of stakes and human relationships, and human relationships is where the real emotional investment comes in. Like, I could tell you the whole world is ending, but you're going to care more if I tell you that, little Sally might scrape her knee. Like, because you understand little Sally more than you understand the concept of the entire human race becoming extinct.
Yeah.
One's more relatable.
I mean, that's kind of the stakes in something like Shaun of the Dead. That's a zombie apocalypse, but you only really care that Sean, Ed, and Liz are going to be okay.
That's a great point.
That was a really good point you made about the difference between about comedies getting lumped as horror comedies when they're not really. They're just using horror tropes or creatures or whatever. I think. Oh yeah, no, there is a difference. I'm going through my mind now of all of the horror comedies I've ever seen, and I'm like, are they horror comedies or are they just comedies?
I mean, and I'm not, it's not to say that I'm like the definitive authority on these, but like that's just the way I personally view it. Like, I view, and sometimes the things you view as a horror comedy, someone else may view as purely a comedy. Evil Dead 2, for example. I know people who think that's just a comedy. I disagree.
Yeah, that's so funny. I was literally about to ask you what you thought of something like Evil Dead, because I saw the remake, the first remake from, I think it was like 2013 or something.
Fede Alvarez.
I went to the cinema to see that with someone who'd never seen any of the Evil Deads, so he was like completely like had no idea about Evil Dead at all, and I'm a fan of the originals, and I found the remake hilarious because I know that's a bit weird, but there's just some, it's really like, it's dark, but I just feel like some of it was meant to be funny. Like, there's that one guy that just keeps getting stabbed.
That's right.
It's just like stuff like that was making me laugh because I felt like it was I did feel like they made quite a big effort to keep it in keeping with the originals, but they just went even bigger with the gore and everything. But yeah, the guy next to me was like, "Why are you like, you freak? Why are you laughing?" And I was like, I was like, I got a different frame of reference to you,
I
so
get
maybe
that. Yeah,
like
that makes
yeah.
sense.
He hated it, and I was like, "Ah, that's how you know it's not going to work out." I'm just like the same horror as you know.
Oh man, I gosh, yeah. I know someone who I have a friend who the first date her and her husband went on uh was to see Hostel, and neither of them knew what they were getting into, and they were like a little ways into it, and he leans over to her, he's like, I'm sorry, should we go? And she's like, oh, I'm fine with this. And they ended up getting married, so you never know. You never.
What a
yeah.
date movie. This is that question I wanted to ask you, because I feel like you straddle the horror comedy line so well.
Thank you.
And I was talking to Eric LaRocca about the snobbery around horror, especially in books. There seems to be this attitude that there are books and then there's horror, like somewhere down here. And then depending on what kind of horror you write and read, there are like tiers according to other people. Like people are lumping extreme horror like right as the bottom of the barrel of literary merit and stuff. And I was wondering how you feel about writing in that genre, and then also comedy is so subjective, so it's you've gone into two areas that are really like difficult in terms of like public perception, if that makes sense. So do you worry about anything like that when you're writing at all?
I have a tendency to make things hard on myself. Like I'll say that much. So I probably should be, but I'm not. And part of that is I like, would it be fun to write full time? I guess. Yeah. But I'm doing it because I want to, and there's I'm I'm not getting rich off this.
Not
So
yet. But I tell you, Hollywood.
I'm I'm making bank at working at nonprofits. Don't you worry. Like I play life on hard mode for no apparent reason, but I don't really, when it comes to literary merits, I guess I don't give too much thought to that, because I'm just doing what I want to do with my free time. And when I find that what I do with my free time ends up being something that people enjoy, that just kind of makes me happy. I would love to have, some sort of full-time income from writing, but I'm not expecting that to happen. And I'm fine with that, in part because I do genuinely enjoy the field I work in, and the job I have now is fantastic. But I mean, you do it because you want to do it. I when it comes to creativity, or to creative production, the people I look up most to are a lot of DIY punks like Jeff Rosenstock, Joshua Porter, like people who just said, "Well, I'm just going to make this thing, and I'm going to put it out there, and I'll figure out the money part later." And that's just because when you want to write and create, when you want to create anything, be that music, art, literature, if it's just stupid videos for online, you do it because you want to do it. And if you ever start doing it for money, you're not gonna enjoy it anymore, because then what you're then you're just doing a job.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it is work, but you have to enjoy the work.
Yeah, you have to love it. I don't actually really know how many hours a week I put into Happy Goat Horror, in which I make no money
Oh yeah.
from this at all. But I think I spend the equivalent of my work week. So reading books, writing reviews, filming videos, thinking of things and then scrapping them.
Well, but also, like, we were talking about the 40,000 words you write and burn. Like
Oh
on
yeah.
some level, like even though, and I'm telling you, Kaylee, just like finish it. Like
Oh,
we'll
I'm gonna
clean it up
finish this
after
one.
that.
I am
But
gonna finish it.
like you do that because you want to, and I think the other thing I should say is you do it because you enjoy it. That doesn't mean just enjoying something doesn't mean it's fun every moment. Um,
Mhm.
talk to any go talk to any like muscle like gym rat guy and ask him, do you enjoy every day at the gym? And if
Mhm.
he's honest, he will say no. There are days he doesn't enjoy, but like he does it because overall it's the thing you enjoy. I think you don't need gratification in every individual moment. So, if you enjoy doing these things and there's a day where you're not having fun, that's okay. That's okay. Don't beat yourself up over it. But
Yeah.
like you have to do it because overall you enjoy it. Overall you like that you created this thing and your name is on it.
There's nothing like a finished product as well to just make your heart sing a little bit when you finish a thing, and then you get to see the finished thing. You're like, oh, I did
Mhm.
that. That was
Yeah,
nice. Yeah.
yeah, and it's always for me. It's always I've said this before. I said this used this word earlier, but it's going back to it. Disorienting to like whenever I'm like, oh, because like especially writing is something that it's such a solitary process. And
Yeah.
then there's all these hours you've spent alone, and you're just like, all right, everyone come in now. Everyone come look at this. And it's almost like you have to be ready to feel like almost like your privacy is violated in a way.
It's quite personal. Because I think everybody channels a bit of themselves in what they're writing, especially when they're writing things of emotional importance. So it is, you do feel a little bit vulnerable. And do you care about reviews at all? I know everyone
Uh,
kind of reads their reviews, but like, do you like if you get a bad review, do you care?
I don't think I've gotten a so there's a qualifier to this, but
Okay.
I don't think I've gotten a bad review yet.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is I haven't gotten a ton of reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also for this book in particular, I know it's in a weird little gap, and I know not everyone's going to like it. And so for me, I'm okay with that. As long as the people reviewing it aren't saying like, um, saying that like the writing itself sucks,
Mm-hmm.
which even then I
Yeah.
might be okay with them saying because like it is still I look at it and this is what I wanted it to be. And I know that sounds like real artsy and out there, but like that's seriously this book is what I wanted it to be, and it's there. And there are other things that I might release in the future that I might be a little more sensitive about, but um yeah, that's something I haven't had to deal with yet. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you're watching this and you want to know how I deal with it, please go write a negative review of my book
I'll
and
do
let's
it.
just process this emotion together.
I um I haven't I yeah, I've had a few reviews just from people who didn't like the thing I wrote or whatever, and that's fine. Um I do think negative reviews are a good sign that your work is reaching an organic audience though. So, you know, nobody has 5 stars across the board. All my favorite Stephen King books have a slew of 1 star reviews on them. So it's just I did have one. It didn't make me laugh, but I thought I had a, a critique. It was a balanced review, but there was a critique that the way I depicted mental health in this one character was like really insulting. And I'm
Oh, don't tell me you based it on yourself.
I did.
I know. I saw that coming.
Do you know what I thought though? I thought, well, either they misunderstood or I didn't communicate what I meant well enough for that person. So it's still a valid critique if that's the way that someone took it. But I just thought that was so like I was like, oh, really mind my own darkness for that one.
Oh my goodness.
The irony.
Oh.
But no, I
I mean, it's what it is, and it's like also like working in like there. I think sometimes there's external sensitivities to topics that don't exist to people within those areas. Mental health being one of them.
yeah.
I know there's times working in the disability field where I'll be talking with like someone with an intellectual or developmental disability, or a family member, and they'll just say something that I'll just be like, oh, we can say that? Like, we can. And it's just like the verbalization of something people don't want to say, but it's like, once you're there, you're like, well, this is just what my life is. This is just what's going on.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. But when you're not part of like that group, or if your experience is different, you might be a little bit like, that's not, like, you might just assume that is disrespectful from someone else if you don't know that. No, they have very firsthand experience.
Well, I thought the irony of getting a critique like that on a review of something I've written is that one of the things that, like, people who follow my channel a lot and stuff, or my website, know that one of my biggest pet peeve that I complain about the most is lazy mental health shortcuts in horror stories.
Yeah.
The fact that that was like the main critique that I received, I was like, oh, I am swallowing some humble pills. Maybe I should be more careful in future. I thought that I was being quite authentic, but something's gone awry. And so, whoops.
Yeah.
um, what kind of, outside of what's David Wong's real name? I always forget.
Jason Pargin.
That's right. Sorry, I always forget that. Outside
Yeah.
of him, who you've cited as an influence, what else do you like to read and watch? Do you read and watch a lot of horror and comedy, or are your tastes a bit broader in general?
Yeah. I tend to write. I tend to write a lot of horror stuff, and I do watch a fair amount of horror. When it comes to reading, I feel like I don't read nearly as much horror as a lot of other horror writers read. I read a lot of Joyce Carol Oates, and I've gotten really into. I'm getting really into Japanese writers. Some horror, some just like, I don't like this one up here. Actually, I've got right now. Just Ryu Murakami. I don't know, something about. Granted, it's translated, but something about Japanese writers is really interesting to me. Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami was a book I found beautiful. So I'm all over the place, and uh, basically, and part of it is I want to know a little bit of everything. Um, you know, I don't I don't ever want to be somebody who's like, oh, this is my one thing. In part because I think there's so much good writing out there, that to say, I'm only going to read horror is really depriving myself of stuff. Now, that said, there are some genres like fantasy. I just can't do it. Pure
Oh,
fantasy, I cannot do.
I
Um,
I think there are types of fantasy, but I'm not very well versed in this myself. But I enjoyed. Uh, I've read a little bit of fantasy, and I'm fine with fantasy that's sort of grounded in our world, but there's magical stuff. And then there's, like, I think it's high fantasy where you're
yeah,
completely
that's the
speculative.
one.
I
That's the
struggle
one I
with
can't
that.
do. High fantasy and like high sci-fi. Um, because like I feel, I feel like anytime I read those books, they're always like, oh, and here's this convenient element of the world that we're just gonna put out there to solve the story for us.
I
Like,
just get confused. I can't
yeah.
keep it straight. I read the Color of Magic, Terry Pratchett, and
Mhm.
I think that's where it's got the first Discworld one, and
I'm not a
it
nerd. I don't know.
it was it was really good, and I really enjoyed the humor, but I was a bit like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Because nothing is Earth. So nothing is what I knew. So I was having a hard time keeping everything straight and imagining it all. I did
Yeah. Like,
really like it and want to read more, but I just thought I'm gonna have a break before I
those
go
I
back
get you,
there.
those books come with a map. Like, if a book
Yeah.
comes with a map, I'm typically like, no, this isn't mine. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
I was good with Lord of the Rings, but to be honest, I did see the films first. It's a lot easier to imagine the landscape when you've seen it. So
Yeah.
yeah, if anyone's
Yeah.
got any good fantasy recommendations for that either Gav or I should try out, maybe we could be converted. Let us know in the
I
comments.
I'm always happy to be wrong. I really am. like I'm saying I don't like fantasy because every fantasy I've read, with the exception of like Harry Potter, I have found just like I can't do it. I don't know why. I'm just like it makes no sense. It feels unnecessarily convoluted, like the whole dynamics of the world, and there's a lot of exposition in the dialogue that just bores me. Like that's what often happens. So like, but I'd be happy to be wrong because then that would mean that there are more books out there that I like.
I feel like there's a subgenre of fantasy out there for everyone. Like I think about horror as well. So people who just flat out will not read horror, I'm like, but there's so many types. Because people who don't read or watch horror always go, oh, I don't like all the blood and stuff, and I'm like, it's actually not my brand of horror either.
Yeah.
Like I don't go for grotesque normally. So, but yeah, there's lots out there.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think, gosh, Gwendolyn Keist is really good at like if you want non-gore horror, I think she's fantastic at it. There's another writer that she's got some short stories out now, and I know she's got some books with an agent, but that I'm keeping an eye on. Jessie Ann York, she's a writer based out of Tennessee that just like I'm kind of I don't do you ever read someone and you're just like, oh, you have it. Like you just have that thing. Like
Yeah.
that's how I feel about her. Thank you.
There's a reason I asked you. I don't just ask anybody.
I'm still I don't know. I'll figure it out. I don't do good with compliments.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel awkward.
No, it's fine.
Yes,
it's fine. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it. But for me, one of those people is Jessie Ann York, and gosh, I can't remember. I've got the anthology she's in, but I would highly advise folks check that out. Just Google it, whatever. Just look for the account that's like half horror stuff, half cosplay. Like that's her. And then, like, yeah, so when it comes to non-gore horror, I would non like extreme gore horror that is. But there's plenty out there. You're right. And so I'm sure there is a fantasy author out there somewhere that I like.
That you have not yet found.
Just haven't yet.
So I know I have to let you go soon. I'm sorry. I could keep you all here all day. I just want to ask you, when you're I don't know if you think about this as you're writing or if you're more focused on just getting the story down, but is there anything in particular that you like care the most about for overall what you would like your readers to take away?
That's such a good question. Because I feel like there is, and this is I feel like there is, but I'm still trying to find a way to verbalize it. And I feel like the things I write are me trying to verbalize it. And so even though Good Boy is such a ridiculous novel, there still are elements to it that are me just trying to get something out. I think one element is just an encouragement to look outside yourself. And I think sometimes sometimes to know at no real, like, I'm not trying to pick on anyone, but like because I've done this too, but we view our lives as the sole story of existence. And the reality is, while we do have our own story, we are also a player in someone else's. And the world is bigger than us. And there's a lot of Western culture that is based around this idea that you are the hero of the story and you have to accomplish this big thing, and what you do matters and is important and everyone needs to focus on it. And while you as an individual are important, you're important in the grand scheme of things. You're important in how you are to other people. You're important in your place in the world, and other people are also important. And so there is an element that I don't know how well I portrayed it in this book, but there's an element of it that in the end is just this, you have to realize that there's more than you in this world. And that is something I'm saying to myself as well.
Yeah.
I've got friends who can tell you there are times where they've had to call me out on something, and I had to come back and be like, you know what, you're right.
Mhm.
I did not, I was just focused on my problem, and I didn't even think to ask, to ask how you were doing or something like that. Um, and so, yeah, I guess look beyond yourself would be the big thing.
I think that that's perfectly captured in this book, actually, because there is a much bigger thing going on than the protagonist even knows or has even considered. And a bit that really struck me is he gets in touch with somebody from his past, and they're like, "Oh no!"
Like, yeah, like why do you think that you could just do this? Like,
Yeah,
what is?
it's like the lack of self-awareness, and I actually found that really relatable, because he's not a bad guy, but he's he's very wrapped up in his own you know
Yeah,
like stuff that's going on with him and what he's doing. So he's like, oh, I need to do this, and then that person's like, oh, I wish you didn't.
yeah,
Would rather not hear from you. Now look at all this trouble.
yeah.
So yeah, I thought that you the book really does encapsulate that there's like this whole huge, there's a million other things going on, and you're only a part, like kind of like a cog in a larger general wheel, so to speak.
Yeah. And your life is equally fantastic, but so are others. And, and so it just, it's, I would almost, yeah, going back to something we talked about earlier, you talked about that negative review on your book. And I obviously, I don't know the person. I don't know what their life is like, but I think that's also an example of that may potentially be an example of someone thinking, you know what, I'm making a statement that needs to be heard. I'm doing this thing, saying, like, calling out like lazy mental health writing or lazy tropes or something. And it's like, in the reality, you were putting like a vulnerable part of yourself out there.
That's why it was so funny. But yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, they're not bad for wanting to care about that, but at the same time, there's another person out there who's like, I was trying to be good.
I suppose I could have been hurt by it, but I really
Funny.
am very a placid person about. I'm not very precious about my stuff, so if people don't like it, that's okay. Like, and I actually, I did send an email and thank, because the way it was worded was like they were a bit nervous if I saw this review.
Oh, I gotcha.
So I did send an email to the website and thank them for the feedback. I said, thanks very much for taking the time and everything, and I appreciated it. But it was just the irony of the situation that made me laugh so much about it.
It really is. It really is. And yeah, and if you leave a negative review on my stuff, I probably won't respond because I'm. Or maybe I will. I don't know. Leave negative reviews. Let's find out. I don't know how I'll react to this.
I just feel like I want to provoke you now. I'm going to be on Instagram the second we hang up.
I've actually considered that. I've considered self-publishing a book and encouraging a negative review campaign to see how quickly I could get to like 1,000 one-star reviews.
Ooh.
Like the slowest 1,000 stars or something like that. I don't know why.
I have to do that.
This is more of the me liking to make things difficult on myself.
They were just like the irony, though. That would probably be like your bestseller.
I don't know. Whatever. I'm just trying to have fun.
That would probably be the thing that would like get you an agent's attention. Who is this guy and how is he making everyone so mad?
Maybe I should do it.
I think you should. I think that's a really good idea. I'll participate. I can think of loads of creative insults and I haven't even read it yet.
Gotta do something else. Gotta do something to separate myself from the rest of the white bearded guys with a nose ring. We're everywhere now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You've got interesting shelves.
Yeah, I've got I'm the interesting shelf guy. I'll bring them with me to AuthorCon.
Yeah. Got
No,
a
I
tree
won't. They're a pain to remove.
and install.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know how they get installed. I have to call over a friend to help me put them up and take them down. And he just like stares at them for a minute. It's like, oh, okay, so this is how it works. And then I still don't understand. So
I hate that.
yeah.
I tried to put shelves up recently because I'm a strong, competent, independent woman. I am married, but
I was
still.
about to say, like,
but I thought, no,
independently married.
I thought I don't need a man's help for
You got married all on your own.
Yeah, I did it all by myself, with my husband, but still. And then I ended up having to call in the troops after hours and hours of just, and I put shelves up before, so I don't know what a sudden inability to figure it out. But yeah, I wish I had more trade skills. Or this is why I spend all my time in books.
Hey, no, emphasize your strengths. Don't worry about your weaknesses.
That's why I've leaned. I can talk about things that don't exist all day. Don't ask me where my radiator key is, because I don't know. Okay, and on that note, I should probably release you from my clutches, but thank you so much for doing this. And for everybody watching or listening, I'm putting the sales link for this book in the description, and then all of where you can find Gavin on social media and the internet and everything, so people can track you down and leave you those negative reviews that you've asked for.
Please do.
Yes. We'll have a jolly good time. See you all on the internet. Yeah, thanks again for doing this, Gav. I was really looking forward to this one because I knew it would be fun.
I've enjoyed it very much.
Good. And our sign off, because we're goats here, is bleat. So we're going to wish everybody a lovely bleed. Oh, can't find the stop record button. That's slightly awkward. Okay, bye.